Hello and welcome to another video. Now, about 5 years ago now, incredible as that seems, one of the first videos I did was to show how you created a new class in Fantasy Grounds. Now, obviously, that was made for Fantasy Grounds Classic, and a lot has happened in 5 years, including the very latest update to Unity, just came out a couple of days ago, which changes everything to do with class creation. So I thought it was time to revisit that video, and so today we're going to create a new class, show you how to create a new class in Fantasy Grounds Unity. So we obviously start with our classes icon here. We've got the player's handbook open, so we have all the classes from that. But we want to click on this green plus button here to add an item. And we are faced with this dialog, which has got a couple of tabs here. We've got the main tab and we've got the other tab. And the main tab is what we'll concentrate on first. So the first thing we need to give the class a name. So let's call it the Highland Cleric. And then in this first tab here, basically this is just a description of your class. This is just general information. Anything you want really can go in here. It doesn't really matter because Fantasy Grounds doesn't actually do anything with this particular page. It really is just descriptive. So I've got some text that I've created already. So I'm just going to paste that in there, and basically we're done. I mean, if you wanted, for example, to add an asset here, maybe a little image of your cleric, you could do so and just drag that in here, tidy that up a bit, give it a heading or whatever, and there you are, and that would be you done. I mean, you can look at any of the ones in the player handbook, for example, and there's all sorts of descriptive text, bits and pieces. You've got this table with all your abilities and everything like that. So you can replicate all of that in your class in this first page. The important thing is it doesn't matter what you put in there, it's just descriptive text. Fantasy Grounds doesn't do anything with it. So the guts of the new class is going to be in the other tab. And if we open that up, we can see that we've got three different sections here. We've got the hit dice per level at the top, we've got first level proficiencies, and we've got multi-class proficiencies, and then we've got features. So that makes four sections. There we go, we have four sections, not three. So in here, the first box here, hit dice per level. This is where we would put in the amount of hit dice that the cleric gets per level. Whenever they level up, they're going to get the average dice. At level 1, they'll get the full dice, plus, of course, their constitution modifier. So we want to put in 1d8 here, and per Highland cleric level. And that's all you need in that, and that will automatically, we'll just correct the spelling, that will automatically, whenever you level up your cleric, that will give you the correct amount of hit dice whenever you level up, and of course on first level as well. And then we come to this section here about first level proficiencies, and as it suggests, this is the proficiencies that the character class would get at the first level. So when you first create the character, this is the proficiencies that the character will get. So let's give remember to spell it the American way. Let's give it some light armor. Let's say medium armor and shields. So that's our armor proficiency. So we just list these separated by a comma, whatever proficiencies they have. You could have obviously heavy armor in there as well. You could miss out the shields, whatever you want. Just list the armors that the class is proficient with, separated by a comma. And the next section is saving throws. So in this case, we're going to give them saving throws to wisdom and charisma, just like a normal cleric. And we just type in the abilities that you want them to have saving throw proficiency with, separated by a comma again, and spelt just like you see in the screen there with a capitalized first letter. And that's it really for that section. And in the section for skills, now you've got quite a fair bit of leeway as to what you can put in here. But the standard really is choose two from, and then we list the skills. So let's give it history, insight, um, let's see, medicine, and religion, let's say. Um, and you just separate these. Actually, we should put in and religion there. So we separate these by a comma, and again capitalize the first letter of each of the skills. And this will pop up a choice box when we come to create the character and test the character later on. This will pop up a choice box, and it will ask us to choose two from the list that you give. And again, any skills that are in the player's handbook can be added here. And just keep the same wording. Choose two from, list the skills, separated by a comma. Tools we don't really need to worry about, and most classes don't really have tools. Maybe thieves tools if this was a rogue character or a bard or something like that. Maybe if it was a bard, we'd obviously have musical instruments as well. But our cleric doesn't have any tools, so we're just going to leave that blank. We don't need to put anything in there. If there's nothing that they're proficient with, you don't need to put anything in there. And for weapons, let's just give them all simple weapons, and then you can put in a comma again, and we could put in, let's say, a claymore. I know that doesn't exist in 5e, but um, maybe you've created it somewhere else for your campaign, and you can add that in there. So you can just basically describe what it is, and each different category it would be separated by a comma. You could just list individual weapons there and separate it all by a comma. And this will update the character sheet with the proficiencies when the character is created at first level. So that's really the first section, and that's basically it. And the second section here is the multi-class proficiency. So if you go to the table in the player's handbook, it shows you in that what proficiencies a character carries over if they multi-class. So basically what you do in these boxes is to put in those proficiencies that the character uh, also gets if they multi-class into some other class type. So we could just say, for example, here, light armor. They keep the light armor. That we don't. They don't worry about any skills. They don't get any additional skills or anything like that. We don't have any tools. And let's say that they retain the use of the claymore when they multi-class. And that's really all you really need to do with that. Again, if you have a bunch of stuff, separate it all by a comma. And that's really the first level of proficiencies, the multi-class proficiencies, and we're done with the hit dice per level. And then we come on to this next section, all about features. And this is where you would list the features that the class gets. So every feature that the class gets, you would add in to this section of the class here. So to add a feature, we click on the green plus. This gives us a new line. We can then click on the red dragon head here, or whatever it is, depending on the theme that you're using. You would click on that link, and you get a dialog box which looks like this. And basically all you're going to do here is fill this in with the necessary information. So let's give this the cleric here a new feature, and let's call it I don't know, let's call it healing for fun. So that's just a name, it's just the name of the feature that we've got, and then we need to tell Fantasy Grounds what level this feature is obtained at, and it'll be level 1 in this case. And again, we've got some text here which I'll just copy and paste and put it into this line here. So if this cleric spends a full minute in contemplation and then drinks a full can of iron brew, they can heal another character for 1d6 hit points, and they can do this as many times per day as their wisdom modifier. So that's the text describing what this feature is for this particular class at first level. There's a little box here, specialization choice, which is a tick box. We're going to leave that unticked at the moment because this isn't a specialization choice. So we only need this ticked if we have a specialization choice, which we'll come to. So this feature is now done. We can close that off and we can close that. And we've got our little feature is now here. We can get back to it again by clicking on the link. So let's add another feature. We do the same thing again. And this one, let's call it Channel Divinity, which is something that most clerics get at level 2. So we're going to put a 2 in here to indicate that this is level 2. And again, we've got some text, which we're just going to paste in here. So at second level, the cleric gains the ability to eat a fish supper if one is available, and giving them 5 temporary hit points for an hour, and the cleric can only gain such hit points once per long rest. So again, just a simple description of the feature is all that we require in here. And again, we're not going to worry about the specialization choice. We're just going to leave that unticked. We close that and we're done. So we now have a couple of features that our class has at first and second level. Now, something that the cleric also gets at first level is a divine domain, and this is a specialization. And those of you who are familiar with the creating a class will notice that on here now, where previously you would have had the specialization section, that is no longer here. And this is because the specializations have now been split up from the actual class themselves, and we can access this the specializations from this button up here at the top of the class list. But first of all, we've got to tell Fantasy Grounds that we have a specialization coming up. So we've got to add a new feature for this. So we go into here and then we will just call this divine domain. And we're going to give this at level 1 because this feature comes in at level 1. And again, we've got some text, which it doesn't matter what it is, but we've got some text here which we can copy and paste into this line here. And this time we need to tell Fantasy Grounds that this is a specialization choice. So this time we are actually going to tick this box, and at level 1, when we drag the when we're creating their character, at level 1 we're going to hit this divine domain, and then Fantasy Grounds is going to start looking for divine domains for the Highland Cleric, and it's going to list them out for you and give you the choice of which one you would like to choose. So we're going to lock this up, and that's it. In fact, actually, let's leave that open just for now, and we'll unlock it. No, we'll actually leave that the way it is. Right. Okay, so now we need to create the archetypes. We need to create these divine domains. And as I say, we've now split this up from the classes. It's now a special section altogether. And let's get rid of that one. And you're faced with this class specialization dialog box here. We have nothing in it for the moment, obviously, because we haven't created anything. And again, as ever, we come to the add item button and we click on that, and we now have the new class specialization dialog. And you'll notice that this is very similar to the actual class itself. We've got a main tab and an other, and here we've got a main tab and another, and it's very, very similar, and we just fill it in exactly the same way. So the first thing we've got to do is give it a domain name. So let's call this one the Glaswegian domain, for want of a better word. And again, the first page here is nothing. It's just basically some descriptive text telling us that this domain revolves around drinking copious amounts of iron brew and eating fried Mars bars. And that's basically it. We just have a description here, and again, we can add in an image here or anything else that you like, tables, whatever, can all be linked or added to this bit. Any kind of formatted text is just descriptive. And once again, it's the other tab, which is the important bit. So we know that this is a class specialization. We need to tell Fantasy Grounds what class this is a specialization for. So we type in here Highland Cleric. Let's try and type it all in properly. There we go. So that tells Fantasy Grounds now that this domain here belongs to the Highland Cleric class. So when we are creating this Highland Cleric here, when we get to this divine domain thing, the Fantasy Grounds is going to say, this is a choice here, and is going to start looking for domains with the Highland Cleric class in this box. And then we add the features for this domain. And again, we just click the green button, click the little icon here, and then we give this one a name, and it follows the same pattern as it would as if this was a class feature itself. So we're going to get this one at level 1, and again we've got some text here which we'll just quickly copy in. And so this domain, no, that's the wrong bit of text. So let's get rid of that and paste in this one. There we go. So when this cleric makes an attack whilst under the influence of a can of iron brew, they do an additional 1d4 points of damage. So this is a feature of this domain here. We can close that off and then continue adding in more features, whatever we have here. And again, we just call this one withdrawal symptoms. I think I've got here. And again, we've got some text. I'll just paste that in. And let's say we get this one at second level. It probably should be third or fourth level, but for the purposes of this, we'll just call it a second level feature. Okay, so now this one here, just to demonstrate this, if this cleric spends a full day without drinking at least one can of iron brew, they must roll on the lack of iron brew table. So we created a table before off camera. Let's find it. We can create this table and we can just drag this in here to this feature. So that the player, when they have this character up, when they see this feature, they can then click on the table here and they can see what happens when the cleric has to roll on here. We just sort of roll as normal and we get a random result. Okay, so that's that one. Now just to demonstrate, we'll quickly make another domain for this cleric. So we go back to our specialization button. Oh no, we don't. We've got the window still open. So we can click on this add item here. And then we're going to go to this one and we'll call this one the Edinburgh domain. And again, you know, we've got some text that we can quickly bash into this bit here. And then we've got the features down here. Now, another thing that I wanted to show you, let's just go, the first thing we need to do is to tell Fantasy Grounds that this domain belongs to the Highland Cleric. We're going to create a new feature here, open this up, and we're going to give this cleric some additional spells if they choose this domain. So we've got some text again that we can put up here. And let's just do this now. We have another new feature in Fantasy Grounds from the last update. And if you look up at the classes list here, we've got another button called spell lists, and this allows you to create spell lists for your own defined classes, or in this case for a class specialization. So we click the button, we get class spell list, and you can see all the ones from the player's handbook are already listed here because we've got the PHP open. Obviously, if you had other books open, it might show you different things as well. And we can click on this button here, definitions. It brings up another new dialog, and to create a new one here, we just click on the green button as ever. And this one we will call the Edinburgh domain spells. And then all we really need to do now is open our spell list. We can drill down to just level 1 spells, and let's say that they get wizard spells or whatever, so we can select wizard here, and all we need to do is to then drag in the spells that this character would get at level 1, and you can then carry on, level 2 spells, level 3 spells, whatever. So whatever spells that they would get, you just keep dragging and dropping them into this list. And of course you can create your own here. If you click this green button, you can create your own level 1 or level whatever spell, but we're just going to drag these in from here. So if we close this off and close this off, we can see now we've got a list definition here for the Edinburgh domain spells, and we can now drag that and link it. We can drag that and link it into our additional spells. We can get rid of all that extra material that came and just put that in there, Edinburgh spell definitions. And that's us. We've got a list of spells that we can get for this class. So let's quickly add in just one more specialization for this class. Add one more thing for this archetype. We'll call it that. And my copy paste is not working at all from Word, so here we go, and this is going to be at level 2, and we've got some text which we will hopefully be able to copy and paste properly this time, and there we go. And that's pretty much it. We've got our 2 domains, we've got our class, we've got our extra spell list, and we are now able to just test this out. So we can close all this for the moment. We can see our Highland Cleric is now in our list. So we go to characters now and add item. And if we just drag in the Highland class, I'm not going to do this using the character wizard because I've got to create a whole bunch of other stuff. I use the character wizard. So quickly dragging this in, we can get our spell choices here. Click that, and then we get our specialization. So let's pick our Edinburgh specialization, and everything then comes in. So we go to our abilities, we get our additional spells here. We go to this link here. It gives us our spell list. We go to our healing. It tells us all about our healing. We can see that if we go to skills, the 2 skills that we chose are in there. We can see that our hit dice are there, etc. And if we drag in the cleric again, we go up to level 2, we go into our abilities tab. We can now see that we've got our second ability in from the domain has come in as well with the extra stuff. And if you go to open this tab here, we can see that in the class and level, it now shows you the specialization down here. You can see that we've got Highland Cleric as our class, and underneath there we've got specialization Edinburgh domain. And clicking on this will open up the actual domain class as well. So the video is getting a bit long, nearly 25 minutes, too long really, but I hope that this gives you a good overview of how to create a new class for your own characters. And now, just very, very briefly, if you want to create, obviously, if you want to create, I mean, it's pretty obvious really now, but if you wanted to create a specialization for a barbarian, for example, then you don't need to do what you used to have to do, which was to copy the barbarian and then add the specializations to the copy. All you need to do now is to come into the specializations and you just create your own specializations in here. And when you go to the other tab, instead of Highland Cleric here, we can put in Barbarian. And if we close that off, and if we go and make a new Barbarian now, if we just very quickly drag in a Barbarian, and they get their specialization at 3rd level, we can see we've got Edinburgh Domain has now popped up for the Barbarian. So if you're creating your own specializations, you don't need to copy, you don't need to add it to the specific class. As long as you tell Fantasy Grounds what class the specialization is for, then it will pick it up no matter what the source of the material is. Okay, I think that really must be it this time. So thank you very much for watching if you watched this far, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers for now.